All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to the Gunner Technology Livestream, a weekly tech talk for non-techies and techies alike. I'm your host, Barry Merkins. With me again is Cody Swan, founder and CEO of Gunner Technology. How you doing, Cody? How's your social media data going?
I put it on the dark web for everyone to.
It's the logical next step.
That's right. That's right. I'm getting upset about it because the media is telling me to get upset about it.
That's how I gauge my anger too, is based on what I'm being told I should be angry about. Let's see. We got big winner this week for the Country Shore giveaway. Sign up on our Facebook page and make sure to visit them at countryshoreoutfitters.com. Country Shore is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. We've got Dan S. from all the way up in Cedar Rapids, Michigan. I don't know. I didn't know there were Country Shore fans in Cedar Rapids, Michigan, but that's awesome.
Oh,
congratulations,
yeah, man.
Dan.
Yeah, man. And is that what school is that? Is that Michigan State or is that Michigan? What is that?
I think Cedar Rapids is one of those weird ones where it's like right in the middle, and it's Western like Michigan? the town is divided. Yeah, okay. And they're fans of New Mexico State.
Got it. Well, I mean, who isn't? That's
actually, you know what? I'm actually not a fan of New Mexico State because I ruined my freaking bracket. Along with like every other team in March Madness this year. So Dan S., you got a hat coming your way, and we'll send you our ebooks too. Make sure to check out our ebooks. I'll announce it again at the end of the episode. But our ebooks are up on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iBooks, Kobo, and basically anywhere else ebooks are sold. So make sure to check those out, everybody. And let's go ahead and get to the question of the week this week. Cody, if you want to take that away.
Oh, yeah. So that's actually a very good question, which I wasn't prepared for. And it was interesting this week. So I want to bring it up. So the question of the week last week was, while
you're looking that up too, I can mention that we had a record number of entrants for the Country Shore giveaway. We had over 2,500 people enter for the giveaway. So it was crazy this week. Big competition, and somehow Dan S. from Cedar Rapids, Michigan pulled it out. So way to go, Dan.
The question of the week was, do you think technology is good for society?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. We wanted to keep it simple this week. That's right.
And the overwhelming response was no. We had just under 2,000 responses between Twitter, Facebook, and our newsletter. And 76% said no, it is not good for society. So we're coming in.
It would have been interesting. I don't know if we can go back and track the numbers, but I would imagine that a flood of no's came in right around, what was it, Sunday night? Somewhere thereabouts, Monday night. I think the needle probably jerked hard to the no side once all that stuff started coming out about Cambridge Analytica.
The question of the week this week, which I was going to send out the newsletter last night, and I totally did not do that, so that'll be going out later today. But the question of the week for this week is, do you prefer to work alone or with other people?
It's a pretty relevant question in our industry.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of going for. So that's the question of the week this week. So
I don't want to sway people's judgments either, but it's actually a really hard question. It depends who you're working with.
True.
But again, there is no nuance. So we want a binary yes or no answer.
Yes, immediately.
Man, I don't even know how I would answer that question. Probably no. I'm a loner. Anyways, let's get to the
without context. I'm going working alone without context.
Yeah. If you can have some sort of rumpus room set up though,
oh, God.
Where you can have the privacy to get a lot of work done, but also have access to a whole bunch of fun stuff to do when you need like a mental break. Which is actually, that's an interesting topic for another time. Is the like how to maintain your mental energy as you're working in this industry, but we'll get to that at some other point. Right now, we need to get to our topic of the day today, which is, what are the keys to success when you're working on a client's project?
Yeah, and so this is a big one. And so again, we kind of come at this from a technology angle, having not worked with clients in, say, like the construction industry. I can't speak to that, but I imagine a lot of these are cross-sectional or cross-industry. We'll go cross industry tips that'll be good for kind of anyone. And the first one, kind of, we can go back and forth on this, but the first one that came to mind when I thought of this question was basically, it kind of piggybacks off last week's discussion, was the setting expectations right up front, but then also exceeding those expectations early. So basically getting off on the right foot. So kind of, we talked about this offline, but the biggest problem, especially when you're working like we do, where there's a lot of clients that we have that we've never even met in person. We've seen them on video conferences, we've emailed with them, but we've never even met them in person. And so trust is a big one. So you've got to do something to win that trust right off the bat. And so like, that's why kind of like we always try to start small. Like we always tell people, like, we're not trying to make money off of our first contract. Like our first contract with a client is always just about like showing them we do what we say we're going to do. And
is that sort of along the lines of you only get one chance to make a first impression kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because it sets the tone for the entirety of the relationship. And so if you're bickering back and forth about like payment for the contract, or you know, what you can or can't do, that's just kind of like, that's going to kind of either it's,
or like nickel and diamond them on feature build out and stuff like that.
Right. So that's either going to end the relationship after the first contract, or set up a sour, distrustful relationship going forward. So what I mean by that is, again, setting the expectations up front. And again, what we always say is we want a small contract first. And so what I'm saying is basically, there's going to be some things that you want to change about the product that either are going to be very easy or very expensive. And so during this first contract, just let's get everything functional and get you something that works. So let's get you something that works, that kind of is like a test for our working relationship. And then we'll kind of hammer out the details and the nitty gritty in future contracts. And so basically, during that first contract, it's more like an audition. And so when you say up front, inevitably during that audition, there's going to be something where it's like, oh, can we change this? And you say, sure. This would normally be something that would be outside of the contract level because it's very complicated. And it's going to take a lot of hours, but yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Or yeah, sure, that's no big deal. It'll take us a couple minutes, not a problem at all. My point is, they start to believe you, because you start from the position where in this world, people don't believe you. So then when you're going in future contracts, when you say, hey, look, that's just out of scope, that's just a huge request that would like take us double the amount of time, and we would actually lose money paying our staff to do that. They're like, oh, okay, then that really is, he's being honest with me, and that really is out of scope. So that first contract for that audition period is just really important.
So it's really all about building trust. I mean, like we sort of talked about last week, and I think as people watch our videos, they sort of see all this stuff starting to come together. So what's interesting as far as early wins in building trust is the ability to split a project up into multiple subtasks and to work on stuff agilely, and to be able to build stuff over time and see the product grow, especially in that early phase when you want quick returns and people to be able to see stuff and interact with stuff sort of right off the rip as much as they can.
Yeah, and like we've said numerous times, expectations are so important. And so when you say, look, you don't understand software, that's why you're hiring us. So you've got to trust us when we're going to tell you, like, number one, don't hesitate to ask, because like we said in previous episodes, some things that you think are going to be very, very difficult are going to be very, very easy. Some things you think are going to be very, very easy are going to be very, very difficult. And so our job is to tell you which of those is out of scope and which of those is in scope, which takes a large amount of trust to be able to do. But if you kind of have that initial rapport where we're going to be honest, like we're going to be honest, we're going to tell you 100%, yes, this is in scope. No, this isn't in scope. We can get this done by, and by the way, one of those other big trust things is hitting your original deadline. like that first deadline for that first contract is so important, because again, if you don't hit that first deadline, they're not going to believe you at all on your next deadline. So doing what you say is just so critical in that kind of audition contract.
And then as far as once you've sort of gotten past the initial, it's not even a honeymoon phase. It's really like it's like a courtship phase almost. But once you've gotten past that, it seems like the keys to success. Phase. Yeah, exactly.
Sunk my battleship.
It seems like the keys to success change at that point, and it becomes more so now. Once you've established trust, it becomes much more so about the actual product itself and bringing their ideas to life more so.
Yeah, and so on that note, the client-vendor relationship is just like any other relationship, like an interpersonal relationship. Like think about dating, where you're trying to woo that significant other or woo that crush of yours, and you're trying really hard, and then you get in the relationship and you get complacent and you take it for granted and it falls apart. It's the same type of deal with a client. Like once they're under contract, you don't want to let them feel like, okay, we got you now. We're just going to kind of like put you into a stack of all our other clients, and we'll let you know when we need you. No,
still going to have date night with your client.
That's right.
Surprise me every now and then.
That's right, and we have an app for that, the You Consent app. So
yeah, check that out actually on iTunes and the Google Play Store. You Consent, lowercase u, capital C consent. Check it out.
Yep. So there's a lot of little things you can do to let that client know that you still value the relationship, and that's kind of like number one. The number one issue is be responsive. We've talked about in other episodes that we push most of our clients to communicate via email, and it doesn't have anything to do with we don't want to talk to them, but we can service a lot more clients and we can service them better in less time via email. But if we're going to make that our preferred method of communication, we have to be very responsive for email. So, typically we'll get back to a client with an email within an hour, even if it's just to say, hey, got your email, got to put some thought into this. I'll get back to you within 48 hours.
And talk about how we accomplish that, because one thing that we do is basically having at least one person always on call, so to speak, and monitoring the requests that we get from clients. But what are some other tips you can give people there as far as responsiveness as it comes to communications with clients?
Yeah, and again, it goes back to just kind of doing what you say. Like, the client's trusting us, because inevitably when we sign up a client, even though we tell them when we're signing up, hey, the best way to communicate with us is via email, inevitably they start by calling us, and we kind of have to be like you don't want to say don't call us, but you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because you're calling us, and when you call someone, you only have the ability to get a hold of that one person. Right? Like if I'm not in front of my phone, which 99% of the time, I'm not in a position where I can answer my phone. So if you call me and I'm busy,
you're just going to yell email and hang up.
you're not going to get the answer. But if you email me, then we have triggers that can like escalate an email, like you said, to the on-call person, to a wider audience. We always have someone standing by. And most of the time, the question is something that's going to have to be researched anyway. So even if I do pick up the phone, my answer to the question is going to be, I need to research that.
Yeah, and it's much easier to flesh out the details via email than it is via phone for a myriad number of reasons. I mean, the most important of which is that multiple people can be involved at once.
Right. And again, if we're going to set the tenor and say email us, then we have to be on the ball when it comes to getting back to emails. We can't just say, hey, don't call us, email us, and then let emails sit for 2 days kind of unanswered. We're setting the tone for the communication. We have to be on the ball when it comes to responding.
Yeah, and I mean, an interesting topic there is basically filtering emails, because, when you're working with dozens, or even, I mean, we've worked with hundreds of clients at once, it becomes that much more important to be able to intelligently direct emails to the right party to make sure that they're aware that there's a request outstanding.
Right. And so we'll have ticketing systems. Like I said, we'll have automatic escalation procedures with our email. There's a lot of smart stuff we can do with software, given that's what we do, to get emails to the right place, or to get written communication to the right place.
So once you've gotten sort of out of the gate and you've got the communication down, at that point, what are the key factors that go into maintaining or even growing the relationship?
Over communication is a big one. And so it's kind of goes in line with what we're saying about email, but a little bit more so than that. Like, when in doubt, communicate. And you should almost always be in doubt. So, like, let's say you say a deadline is going to be Friday. We're going to have this to you on Friday. And usually, if I say a deadline is going to be Friday, I want to shoot to deliver it by Thursday. But my point is, if you're starting to get close to that deadline and it's not delivered, just shoot the client an email and be like, hey, we're still on target for Friday. We're looking good. Just wanted to let you know. Or the minute you're looking off for a deadline, be like, hey, look, we said we're going to deliver this Friday, and we're a little bit behind where we thought we were. So we're going to try to pull an all-nighter and get this together. But I just want to let you know it may be Saturday morning. But I'll keep you updated as it goes along. So, like, we've never had a client complain about over communication, not one time. So that over communication is a big one for growing that relationship and that trust factor.
We've actually got a question from one of our scopers, and they're curious about what the key success are as far as getting a client's project to market, or getting their product to market.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the key to getting a product to market is always one of the keys is always to kind of set the tone that, like, perfection kills. Especially when you're talking about someone's idea, they take it very personally. There's like an emotional aspect to it where they think it's like an edict on them. They
take it as a personal insult when you give them feedback. It's a very, very fine line that you have to walk.
Right. So when it's someone's idea, they want it to be perfect when it goes out to the public, because any criticism or feedback from the public, they internalize it like they're actually being criticized. So you got to kind of explain that to them, because they don't even realize that. And we've done this a lot of times with entrepreneurs, and we got to explain to them, hey, we've got to get this product out. We've got to get this product functional and out to get feedback if you want it to be successful. And no matter how good it is, you're going to get negative feedback. And not only that, most people, the only time they give feedback is when it's negative. There's not a lot of positive feedback. So you have to have a strong mindset that this is about the product, and that people like to complain more than they like to praise, and that we can't make product decisions based on a few loud complaints. We've talked about this in previous episodes. The data tells a much more interesting story than the qualitative feedback in most cases. So someone may review your app on the App Store, says this sucks, it doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. However, that same user may figure out that they were like in an area with no connectivity, for example, and then get into an area with connectivity and start using the app and love it. And you'll never, ever they'll never come back and correct it and be like, oh, just kidding, the app doesn't suck. It was just me being an idiot, and I really love this application. You'll never see that. But the data will show that. The data will show that the user came back and is using it every single day now. And so we can pretty much disregard that tantrum that they left as review.
Sort of on that note, can you talk about what a minimal viable product is, or what's known as MVP?
Yeah, so MVP, or a minimum viable product, is basically the smallest, most compact thing or product that we can get into the target audience's hands to provide value. So basically, the MVP should provide some value to its customers, but more so it's about getting feedback and illustrating the potential of the product. Because if people can see the potential, if they have some sort of value, they get some sort of value out of it, even if it's a little bit of value, but they see the potential. Oh, wow. Like if they added this, if they added that, this would be amazing. Then you can really start to grow a product, not only from a user standpoint, but if you're an entrepreneur, that's what you need to get investment, to get the budget you need to grow your product. So that MVP is like the most simple version of your idea that provides even nominal value, but illustrates the potential and can get people starting to use the application. And this can be, we've kind of angled this as the entrepreneur angle, but even internally, if you're building like an internal tool set or a B2B app, you want people using it, and very simply, not just so from a go-to-market standpoint, but you don't want to release this giant application internally, or especially B2B, and be like, all right, go at it. Here you guys go. Because it's overwhelming for the new users. So if you get an MVP in the hands of the users, and you then start, you slowly and slowly and incrementally adding features to that MVP, then you're not going to overwhelm your user base.
So let's talk about, I guess, sort of the final phase of client project. And this is actually something that we don't.
Final form.
Yes.
We're going Dragon Ball Z here.
Yes, the final form of the client project. And actually, I was going to say this is something that we don't deal with too much, because generally we find that there's never a shortage of ideas, and clients are always interested in continuing to work with us to help them build those out. But what about this sort of end of life cycle of client projects and how you actually manage those? Can you give any advice there?
You mean where like the project is over?
Yeah. Yep. How do you successfully wind down a project? Is basically my question there.
That is tough. So I look at it more as like phases, because really I never think of a project as ending. I never think of like in a global sense the project is ending. I see you're commissioned to do something. This idea comes up and you do it, and then that feature is complete. So maybe that's what we're talking about here, is the feature being the project. And so in that case, what you need to do is you kind of have to have a kind of debriefing after the feature is done. Like, okay, here's the release of the feature. This project is now over. What are we going to do to make sure this project worked as intended, and determine if it was a failure or a success? That kind of debriefing is critical, so you just don't just go to the next project without any idea of if your last project was a success or not. Because as you said, the projects keep coming. Like you have a client, and then once you have a client, you almost have infinite number of projects, because once someone is exposed to how technology can help their company, it just kind of spirals out of control almost with all the ideas. So the roadmap is really important in terms of, we're going to do this, we're going to do this project, we're going to do that project, we're going to do the next project. And so at the end of a project, that debriefing is like, okay, we're not just kicking this project out into the world and letting it sink or swim. We're going to measure it to see if it was a success. And if it wasn't, or it was, does that change our project roadmap at all? Does that affect the next project that comes down the line? Because maybe the next project on the roadmap was contingent upon this previous project. And if that previous project wasn't as successful as we thought it was going to be, we don't want to just move on to the next project that's contingent upon that, because maybe we just misread something, and the feedback we're getting from the users tells us, hey, this this whole line of projects we're going down isn't the right way to go. What else on our roadmap is unrelated to this project that we should take a look at?
We've got a whole bunch of questions here. We're not going to be able to get to all of them. So I think actually this is a good final question, because I was about to ask this as well. But how do you deal with clients who have way too many ideas?
Oh, yeah. So we come across it all the time. And that's right. The roadmap is critical. So like we were saying about in previous episodes about estimating unknowns and how it's nearly impossible. Sometimes an idea is very, very vague, and sometimes a little bit more specific. But you can generally tell if an idea is like a 6-week project, or a 6-day project, a 6-week project, a 6-month project, or a 6-year project. You can usually make that kind of guesstimate right off rip. So that's important to get what the kind of ballpark scope of the project is important to relay to the client who's having this idea. The next part that's crucial is having that detailed roadmap. So if you've earmarked this as a 6-day project, or let's have a bad example, if you earmark this as a 6-month project. Oh, that's a great idea, client B. Here's our roadmap. We need to allocate at least 6 months for this idea of yours. Do you want us to put this into the roadmap? You want us to move stuff around, or you just want us to put this at the end of the roadmap? And kind of when we get through everything we have right now, we'll get to that idea. And so then the answer to that question really dictates how you handle that. Because if it goes at the end of the list, then you've just kind of bought yourself some time. Because we've seen this all the time where there's an idea, the client has an idea, and they're like, yeah, but it's not more important than the other stuff we have going right now. So let's put it at the bottom of the roadmap. And then by the time we get to that item, it may not even be relevant anymore. And they're like, all right, just remove that from the roadmap. However, if they say, no, I really want this done, and it's more important than this next thing on the roadmap, then you've got to actually do the due diligence of fleshing out that idea to make it more of a less of a guesstimate and more of an estimate in terms of how long it's going to take. So that's a critical part when you're just getting peppered with ideas, having a process for managing where that idea goes in the roadmap, and how you communicate to the client where it's going to go in the roadmap and where they want it to go in the roadmap.
It's all about communication.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to. We'll end it there. That's going to do it for this episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. Make sure to check out our podcast on iTunes and the associated blog post for this episode on our blog at gunnertech.com. Make sure to check out our sponsor, Country Shore, at countryshoreoutfitters.com. Country Shore is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. Sign up for the giveaway, and you can also buy awesome stuff like this cool hoodie. Make sure to check out our ebooks on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iBooks, and anywhere else that ebooks are sold. And make sure to head to our Facebook page to answer the question of the week for next week.
I also want to throw this out there because I know we don't have an ETA for this, but we're going to start interviewing people from the various industries and talk about how technology affects their industry. So we're going to be lining that up. There's no timetable for it, but for the people in our audience, if you're in a specific industry and you'd like to talk to us and come on the show about discussing how technology affects your industry, drop us a line, and we'll see if we can get you in this series. And again, there's no timeline for it yet, but that'll be coming down the pike. So teasers. Yeah.
So definitely reach out to us, and definitely tune in next week, Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern time, for the next episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. That's going to do it for this week. I'm Barry Merkins. That's Cody Swan. We'll see you next week.